So, yeah, this latter statement, Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. Where does it appear in the Bible? I would ask Alan here, what's its biblical reference? They extrapolate from the properties of God and His almighty, all-powerful, all-knowingness. And you notice I'm getting wound up and feeling challenged as you say that, well, it's not that, we think we're better than this God or that. Well, actually, any person would be, because although we operate within limits, we don't extort powers to the extent that your God and Roger Toll and Gary Cairns would. But just to tell kids that, everything happens for a reason. There are ways to find and inspire the guts to survive and overcome that involve tackling on difficult processes as difficult processes, not of anthropomorphic wrath or anthropomorphic consequences from a mind that went, well, you didn't pray, you were 2 minutes late with your prayer last night, so here comes a rape from an elder, a protected elder in the Cardinal's trust. You don't have that, but you have the possibility of it allowed or permitted for by this idea that. Plus, you've got people approaching causalism from in a linear A to B to C to D to E. And yeah, it's pretty disgusting. It's not helping. Sticking to your turf, which is so you'll note that the more of talk out speech there is about biphobia, the more it'll eventually fall back and there'll be readdresses of origins. But direct opposition to the origin story, going beyond any attempts to harmonise it with evolution. You won't harmonise it with evolution. You've got, and you wouldn't want to anyway. It's to disclose degrees of sexist attitudes that, all of women, to the first woman and onwards, owe their existence to a man's loneliness, and they cost him. It's like when you hear that expression, "Oh, it cost me an arm and a leg." It's like, well, yeah, but in the case of Adam, it really did. It cost him one of his ribs. So, head jobs best be given out offered out anytime a man wants one, or it displeases the Lord. And all the verses concerning women's rights, the rights of women that you'll find in the Bible, all are all complementary to this misogyny where women's origins are secondary and only because of a man's loneliness. So women wouldn't exist at all unless men got lonely. So on an emotional and intellectual level, it's the women's job to make sure that loneliness is never a burden to a man. Why would you want to try and unify that with evolution? Like you don't have a chance. It's fucking stupid. And then it extends all the way on into the New Testament. Women, Corinthians, although the Apostle Paul is known to have hated women, and he thought if you didn't worship God properly, God would punish you by making you a homosexual. The Apostle Paul at the same time wrote, women are to be silent in church. If a woman has a question to ask, she has to reserve her question and ask. She may ask her husband at home, but it's a disgrace to the Lord that a woman should speak in a church. It's stated, and that's in the New Testament. So I'm offended with Alani for her bullshit about how, but God stopped the first covenant and made a second covenant. I'm like, get fucked, he did. According to your Gospel of John, the whole purpose for Jesus killing was to ensure the veracity and perfectness of the Old Testament. There was no second covenant. The divide is as literal as a page turn from end of Old Testament to start of New Testament. There's no change on the politics of slavery, except for commentary like count yourself lucky if you are a slave to a Christian master and you die, because you'll get to be reunited with your Christian brother in heaven. And if you were that slave, would you want to die and go to heaven and go, oh, I remember you, I was your slave back on earth. Hey, fucking good to see you, man. How you been? Like, would you want to fucking hang out with your former slave, former master, as a in an infinite and endurable heavenly body? It's a fucking load of crock. But where there's a deficit, and wherever there's a deficit in judgment, wherever there's a necessary truth to the story, in the event that the story is to be coherent, which is to say comprehensible, which is to say that you're able to think it, that then create niche markets in the Christian endorsed press, like reporting, like so if you're religious going, well, and what you're doing is saying God created Adam and Eve perfect, but what you're not saying is, and then Adam and Eve's kids had to fuck their mother Eve, and they had to fuck her and make kids with her so that their kids could fucking have kids with each other, then what these people should not be allowed to do is investigate other families, or they're going to find a fart joke between a sibling somewhere in a family and go, oh look, did this sibling fart, and record it on a microphone, and you can hear them laughing when these kids are 6 or 7 years of age. How do we know that they weren't being like, what if they were getting up to something disgusting that should never happen between children? Do you mean something like what happens in your Adam and Eve story that you never have the guts to give any sort of public address to? Yeah, like that, like what Adam and Eve's kids had to do. Well, this is where you become problematic investigators, because this is where you even become problematic incestigators, because before you pass judgment on a single other family anywhere, pass it over to qualified and unbiased minds. Don't take it upon yourself to go, oh, weren't Adam and Eve made in such a state of perfection? But now it seems that tape recordings were made of farts and giggling between kids when they were 6 and 7 years of age. We now think may have had something to do with physical bodily interference, acts of physical childhood sex acts. Oh, is that just because we don't talk publicly about what happened with Adam and Eve's kids? Or oh, well, either way, like, we have our religious rights, and that's what matters. It's what matters if you want to spend your life being a religious nut. You are not, you're not the cavalry. The cavalry. You're not the cops. You're not the cavalry. You're not fucking Perry Mason. You're not Columbo. You're not Agatha Christie. If your religion means that straight and pure perfect thinking is the endorsement in silence of a tale of incestuous necessity. See, Alani grosses me out there because, like, I thought if you go religious cross psychology as well, and you don't retreat on teaching the Genesis story, then for every day that you do endorse the Genesis story, you've essentially said that you've fooled around with your siblings. And although that may be fine given you're adopted and not of blood relation, what you have to do is make sure you aren't imposing the biases of an adopted person's circumstances onto families that aren't adopted, or else you could be the enabler of acts in other people's families between their kids, or because you can always fall back on the excuse, well, but I'm adopted, so if I go through Ross's poo, that's up to me. That's my privilege. It's my Ross can poo all he wants, and I'll feel his poo. I'll feel as much of his poo as I want. It's not a crime. We're not blood related. Yeah, but you did teach. You did teach this inbredness to families that are blood related. So how are you gonna, if there's a fuck up and it's on you, how are you going to explain it to their parents? But how are you going to explain it to them, or should you be charged, or what? So I figured someone as intelligent as her would either, if she got into psychology, would do so at the wish to redact belief in the Genesis creation story, or else she might as well go around wearing a shirt for her husband saying, like, I pretend it's my adopted brother's dick in my mouth when it's yours in my ass, dear hubby. And that's, I have the right to say that and still be lenient to her, because I can't be within a fucking room for a silent adult discussion without a murder accusation. Seems she won't move beyond that. Her knowledge of anatomy as it relates to people that hate their own childhoods, their hearts tend to beat away from the childhood. That's what recovery from heartbreak is. You go away from this. I'm away from this. Away. But yeah, so like a jigsaw puzzle piece that's missing, I don't like that in one field they'll go, well, at church, let's not preach that Genesis creation is pedophilic enabling and disgusting. Let's just start gossip stories about the family on this street, the family on that street. Can't you, look at this? We've found recordings about the way they giggle and use profane words and laugh and carry on. Oh, that's got to be proof of... Surely that is more likely to be proof of misconduct between children than what we're teaching in the book of Genesis. No, I'm sorry, but it's not. It wouldn't be if such families of consideration were having inbred babies with helmets in the fetal stage. It would seem that this inbred fetus is showing a helmet equipped at third end of the first trimester. So, can you tell? Is it a stack hut? Is it a foam helmet? What type of helmet is it? She won't. So this idiot, just scope and limitations. It's the one thing I took from pharmacy, is that there's your zone and your section, and then there's where you're just going to be part of the problem. Argue your way forward otherwise, and do it direct if you've been directly challenged, please. Yeah, no. So once again, who could afford to have the excuse in the 4,000 years ago of saying, for the sake of keeping our bloodlines pure, we'll make sure that our kids have reproductive intercourse with one another? Was it common people, or was it kingdoms that were reigning, and as in had rule, that were reigning kingdoms and that had their texts preserved? which way around do you think it was, Alany? And so yeah, saying and if everything happens for a reason, what was the reason for this? Like, did God want me to say these things so that you could go, well, no, I'm not saving the world at all. What? Oh, I'll find the next religion that is. Have you considered detracting from religion altogether? Because you owe a lot of people a lot of apologies from what I've understood for quite some years. Just about every family you ever asked to pledge their existence to the lordship of and the sovereignty of a Saviour called Jesus Christ, defined by the Constitution of harmonizing all four Gospels in the New Testament of the Bible, in addition to believing that his murder was necessary to restore a state of perfection that you admit to be synonymous with incest and incestuous acts from Adam and Eve onward. So which one is it, Alany? Go, 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 go. It's yeah. By now you would have just about enough guts to spy and survey, but not to confront and be true to yourself. So, or I would have heard more out of you by now, I estimate. I'll leave it with you. Please leave your message after